And welcome back. This is the Brutally Honest Loan Officer podcast. I am Derick Brown, and with me today and every day is Stephen Brock. Say hi, Stephen.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back. What's up, Stephen? How was your weekend?
It was wonderfully hot. No, it was good. Went to Busch Gardens and then went over to Orlando by you, hung out around. We didn't go to Disney, but we like Disney Springs and hung out at the pool and then came home.
Nice.
That was it. And I had a pool
That's
day
how
here.
you. That's how you celebrated your Memorial Day weekend, huh?
That is how I am still alive, so I don't. That's how I celebrate Memorial. I don't like when people being a veteran, they're like, "Happy Memorial Day, thank you." And I'm like, "I'm alive."
Yeah,
You're not
like we're here to honor the ones that
yeah.
are not
I'm like,
that lost
that's
their lives in service and stuff. Yeah, I
yeah,
just
that's not to me.
I
That's
would
Veterans
I
Day.
would venture to bet that most Americans do not know the real meaning behind Memorial Day and that it is for all the fallen soldiers.
Yeah, they probably
So,
don't.
I don't want to get too dark, but that is the meaning behind it. I'm super grateful that we have enough people willing to make the sacrifice to where I don't have to enlist or there isn't a draft. I'm grateful for that.
That part I can say you're welcome.
Hey, thank you, Stephen. Um, yeah, I mean, we had a busy weekend too. Um, Hung out with some friends over the weekend, and then yesterday we went out on my neighbor's boat. We went to there's a place in New Smyrna, Disappearing Island. So that was super fun. Wasn't that busy? I guess being a Monday, I think like Saturday and Sunday were crazy packed with a ton
Yeah,
of boats, so a little less dangerous, which I'm a fan of now that we have kids. I used to love the danger. Now not so much. I like to take things easy and relax, but we got some sun and I don't know, enjoyed the day.
there you go. So what are we talking about today?
Holding title.
Ooh,
This
the
might be a
old
very boring episode, however, very important.
it
How you choose
is.
to hold title for your home can help you or hurt you. So we're going to just go through some of the reasons why, some of the benefits. We'll start with benefits. One simply being legal protection. So there's different ways of holding title that offer different protections. Um, let's say holding title as tenants by the entirety. That's one wording of how you can hold title. But that can protect one spouse from the other spouse's creditors. So if that person, if like let's just say there's a husband and a wife and they hold title that way, by tenants by the entirety, then if the wife stops paying bills and creditors come after her, they cannot come after the home because it's owned by another entity. So that's legal protection is one of the reasons, one of the benefits of holding title a certain way. um
So next
Inheritance.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, inheritance planning. I think this is almost the one that's overlooked a lot. You got, how, with one person, if there's two people on it, if one person passes away, what happens? So you have the joint tenancy. That's the word. But the right of survivorship, making the process smoother. So a lot of people don't realize that if you don't have it set up correctly, even sometimes if you have a will set up, but if the trust isn't there, that if one passes away or both pass away, that house can go to probate. And that could take 6, 7, 8 months. I mean, you're going through the court system to let that happen. So if you're not set up on title correctly, it can definitely, even though you have a will, can definitely
Right.
delay
Yeah, no,
things.
I mean, planning for the future a little bit. And a lot of people may not know, how they're holding title, especially if they're first time home buyers. I had a closing today. Nice little young couple. They're not married yet, boyfriend, girlfriend. They bought a house together. And they did that joint tenancy with right of survivorship. And then we explained it at closing that if one of them were to pass, the other one gets the house. Doesn't have to go to, like, we're not involving any heirs. It just simply goes to the other owner. So no, love it. There's also tax benefits. One thing, and I haven't seen a lot of this, but community property that can offer tax advantages. That's where like a group of a community holds title as a community, so that can be beneficial for tax benefits. But also, filing homestead, and if it is your homestead, that's another benefit that you can have.
You
So
have the right depending on the state, like Florida, that if it's homestead, they can't take it away from you. I mean,
correct.
Another, they can get foreclosed on, yes, and they have to go through the legal process of all that, but you can't have, some third party coming in and putting liens on the property and take the home away from you.
Right.
It protects that when it's homestead.
Correct.
So also you have control and flexibility. So you got different title options, providing different levels of control over the property. So like how we just said of the right of survivorship with the couple that you just closed on, but also you have life estates, which the life estate is husband and or one person owns a property, and if they pass away, it allows the other person to inherit it automatically. But it doesn't give the rights away of the other person. So if I owned a house and so I could take mine and give it to my kids, saying when I pass, they get the house. They
Right.
have control of it all. But
Right.
it also allows me to sell the house and do whatever I want to it before I die. So I don't have to have them. They are on it. They only get it if I pass.
Right.
So it kind of definitely gives you some control of what you're going to do, what happens in the worst case scenario with it. But kind of a little flexibility on that.
Right. And that's just adding to like the ease of transfer would be another benefit. But the ease, and what we mean by ease of transfer is, like we said, if it's in a trust and you pass, however it's listed in the trust and who it goes to, it just goes straight to that. If you have tenants by entirety with right of survivorship, joint tenancy with right of survivorship, if one of the owners or spouses passes, it just simply goes to the other one. So just the ease of transfer. We might do a podcast just on trust alone, because I think that there's a lot more to it, as far as like planning, and a lot of people have a will, but when you have your home in a trust, everything is drawn out, specifically as far as what happens. But it can definitely streamline the process when it comes to heirs inheriting the property.
And then you also have clarity on who owns what. So for people that are co-owning it, it gives you options of what each person's rights are, responsibilities. You have tenants in common that has certain language in there. That they, what do they share if they're going to sell it? How much ownership they actually have on there. So it makes it, when the sale happens, very easy to distinguish, what percentage goes to what.
Right. And so, okay. And we mentioned, a couple of these, but we're going to kind of break it down, so that
Everybody's like
whoever's
this.
listening can kind of understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I think we might have mentioned tenants in common. So just imagine you and your friends have a big piece of cake, and each friend owns a piece, but it's not cut into separate pieces. Everyone can decide what to do with their share. One friend might eat theirs, another might save it, or another might give it to someone else. So tenants in common, that's, the easiest way to explain that.
Then you have, tenants by entirety. That is like you and your best friend are both holding the same toy together. You treat it as one person when it comes to that toy. But if one of you stops playing with it, the other one automatically gets the whole toy. So we got kids, we know how that is. I don't know how long they can control both holding onto that same toy, but hey, you're both playing this game together. But when, like my kids, one walks away from it, hey, you walked away from it, now the other one gets it completely.
Got it. And then joint tenants with right of survivorship, like we just explained in my closing today. So imagine you and your sibling own a toy together. Each of you owns the whole toy, not just a part of it. If it's 50-50, it's not like you have 50% of it. You own the whole thing. And if one of your siblings stops playing with that toy and doesn't want it anymore, it automatically belongs to the one that's still using it. So, with the right of survivorship, if it's boyfriend and girlfriend, and boyfriend passes away, girlfriend simply inherits it with right of survivorship. So it just makes it easier not going to the heirs.
So your next one would be your life estate. And there's kind of like two sections of this part of it. So you have your life estate. That's, your grandparents let you live in their house, while they're still alive and there. You get to use it, enjoy it. And when they pass away, the house automatically goes to another person they choose, like your parent. But you also have where it's kind of like the enhanced life estate deed, where you're living in their house with them, but still being able to decide what to do with it. So they can still sell it, use it however they want while they are alive. So that's why I said, like, I actually had this come into recently, where they were trying to refinance it, and the owner's daughter was like, I am on the deed, I am on the deed, they can't do this, they can't, I have to sign to refinance everything with them and all that. And we're like, you're on the life estate deed, which means that when they pass, you become the owner of the deed, but you technically do not own that property.
Right.
You're just the next one in line to own it when they do pass. And she just didn't understand. She was okay with everything, but she just didn't understand. Like, she thought she was on the deed, and everything, them refinancing the mortgage was going to change that. I'm like, you technically have no ownership while they are alive.
Right.
It's just once they pass, you automatically get the ownership of it.
Right. And then that's where, like, I think it's extremely beneficial to have a trust, especially when you start having children, you have siblings. Um, you know, Setting up a trust, you're going to meet with an estate planning attorney. That attorney is going to ask you a lot of questions. How do you want, like, what happens to your assets and stuff like that? But if your home is in the trust, then you have that third party person that's going to, and it's what is it? The trustor, trustee,
Trustee.
trustor.
Yeah.
But
I always
that
get those confused.
person, like, is in control of following the trust. Every bit of your wishes have been listed out, what to do with the property, and there's, like, I have a son and a daughter. I could have a trust set up to where, my daughter gets everything, from the house, and then my son gets something different or whatever. That way they can't fight over it. If I pass, like, it's in the trust, everything's written out. And she would be the beneficiary. So however you want to do that, and then they would benefit, as the beneficiary to my wishes. So property of any sort can be held in a trust. But a lot of times it's, there's personal or commercial reasons, that you would want to get with an estate planning attorney to, have all that done.
Yeah, I would tell you definitely, like, when reviewing these, review with a title company, the attorney, like, what is the best option for you on there. I think trust is definitely a great thing to have. Do you put the property in a trust or not? That's, an attorney question to ask. But definitely having a trust to know, especially if you have kids. Like, we as soon as our kids were born, and I think Joey, our youngest, was a year, that we got to trust and everything finalized, and what happens to who, what happens to what, blah 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 blah, all taken
Well,
care of.
and
Everything.
it's not just listing, like, just a house. Like,
Yeah.
we have a life insurance policy for both my wife and I.
Yep.
If we both were to pass, our kids would technically become millionaires. And, if they're 18 and 14 at the time, I don't think that they need to inherit, $1 million. They're not going to know what to do. I know if somebody gave me $1 million at 18, oh,
You would be broke
man,
by
you guys want to
19.
see a record for spending $1 million? Because I probably would have done it. But yeah, it's listed out in our trust. My mother-in-law is the executor. So if we were to pass, she is gonna perform everything at our wishes, and it's all written out there and stuff like that. And then there's some parts where I think we have, like, use of best judgment or something like that.
Yeah.
Where
There's something that, hey, I want these things done, but then, you know, some of it,
right,
the trustor gets, or whatever they are called, gets the
yeah. So
ability to do it. We also have a clause, and you can put a clause in there where, what if one of us passes? and the other one doesn't and still alive, what happens? And our attorney did it. So it's like, if one of us passes and gets remarried, the step parent can't kind of cuddle their way in there and take
Change the
over.
trust or yeah,
Yep. It
change
takes both
wishes
of
and
our
stuff.
signatures. So once one dies, it never changes again. So both of us have to sign to change it. So it's kind of like another little, protection that, hey, if something happens, yeah, go live your life with your new spouse and whatever the case happens. But like, you're not touching my kid and stuff, checking it. So you can't kill me off and change it. Still good.
Yeah. I don't think we have that clause.
Oh.
Man, I wonder if my wife is planning something that she can remarry somebody else. I hope
Yeah.
that if I do pass, I don't know what I hope. Actually, I can't finish that sentence. I don't know if I want her to miss me for the rest of her life or if I want her to move on. That's morbid to think about, isn't it?
It is. Like you want them to move on, but you're like, I don't
But
want you
do
to
I?
move on. I mean, yeah, do I really?
I don't
Like
know. Is
how?
there a time frame that makes
Yeah,
me feel
yeah.
better
That's
about it?
that's
Like
more of it. Like
2 years is
how long?
not really that doesn't seem like that long. 2 years. 2 years goes by real quick when you have kids. So
Yeah,
I
how
don't know.
how how long is a grieving period before I can?
No.
Yeah.
But okay, you're allowed to grieve. And then if you meet somebody, you got to get to know them. I say 5 years. 5 years before you're tying the knot with somebody else. Tony, if you're listening, 5 years. Okay.
5 years.
Oh man.
That's gonna be in your trust now.
Special clause. It's
Special
the
clause.
Derick clause. I don't
So
know, man.
we talked about these different ways of holding. With a lot of people, what about investment properties? And they put it in the name of the LLC. How does
100% do it every time. That's
and do
my
you do? Yeah, these are our personal opinion. We're not attorneys. I have seen now that people will write up an LLC for every single property, which I see why they do it. Hey, if that one property or that one LLC gets sued, I shut it down, and boom, that's the only thing it has is that one. Um, I've seen where they've had one LLC own multiple properties. I think it's kind of maybe I don't know if it's personal opinion or what attorney told them what to do, but also if you're putting in an LLC, that does change the way we're going to do your mortgage. And that's, I think, what gets a lot of people. They don't realize that if you're putting in an LLC, that you're going to have a different type of mortgage than if you're having it in your personal name.
I'm trying to figure out
6 years, not five. Add an extra year.
no. No, so today, my closing today, which by the way was denied by another lender, and then we got them clear to close in 9 days. Ah, get some. Super excited about that, just saying. No, but like I don't know, they kind of, in my opinion, shouldn't have been getting denied by the other lender. But we were able to make it work. But somebody brought up that the seller had the property in a land trust, and they felt like that was a red flag, and I mean, there's so many different ways to hold property, so I reached out to the seller, who's a developer. It was a new construction home. They built the home. And so I just asked them, like, why do you have it in a land trust? Like they're bringing up questions. And I'm not going to just guess and say that, like, well, maybe this is why, or maybe this is why. So I just called him. He's like, Derick, I'd be happy to answer your questions. Put it in the land trust because there was a previous foreclosure, and there were open liens with the county from them. And we weren't 100% sure if we were going to be able to get all the liens closed. And if those liens stayed open and we put it under an LLC, which has 20 other properties associated with it, those liens would get cast along, like, to all the other properties.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I wanted to avoid that. So we put it in a land trust. So it was just by itself. That way, if we did have to go through all that, and then it ended up not being an issue whatsoever. Everything was cleared, all permits closed, like good to go. Or not all liens closed, everything was satisfied. So we've got clear title, the certificate, the CO, came out. So we were good to go. But one of an interested party just raised it as a red flag and was up in arms about it. And when I talked to the seller, I mean, it made total sense.
Yeah.
Total sense. I don't think it's a red flag at all. It's just they chose to put it, in this way to make things easier for them. No big
The
deal.
legal protection. Yeah.
Right. But the person that was raising the question was just like, no, that's scam artists use land trusts. No, no, I don't.
Scam artists use LLCs too. So should we
Yeah,
not do
yeah.
LLCs?
So,
Hmm.
but no, I talked to a
Eh,
very good friend of mine who's a real estate attorney, and he recommends that if you have an investment property, you have it in an LLC. Just obviously limited liability company. Um, you want it just the limited liability. If you do have multiple properties in it, potentially that does open up a little bit more risk. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
because if you have multiple properties in it, that means they can, if they sue you, they can touch those other properties. That's what it's
right.
happening. If it's in a single LLC, they can only touch what the LLC has. Now, there might be some legal loophole of how they can get through, but it's just a little bit more difficult when it's, hey, I have, like you said, 20 properties in one LLC. It's pretty easy to see what you have in that LLC now and everything you have to disclose. So,
Right. And some people do it just because they don't want like the owner's name attached to anything as far as privacy concerns too. Um, but one thing that you might run across too is if you're buying an investment property, sometimes it is a little bit cheaper as far as interest rates go for you to do it in your personal name using your personal credit, going by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines. But you can't close in an LLC in most circumstances. I've
and you
not
can
been able to
only
do it.
own so many investment properties in your own name
Correct.
before
Fannie Mae,
Fannie, at
Freddie
least
Mac might
before Fannie
limit.
Mae. Yep, they will limit it. And there's no magic
Um,
number. I know they say like, oh, it's between 5 and 10. I've had it denied at 4, and they switched over
really?
to, yeah, they've switched over to investor cash flow. So I think it can, this, I don't know what the system exactly decides
Well,
when they won't allow
and
it.
I closed on a DSCR investment purchase last month where the owners owned like 19 other properties, I think. Some of them were lots, like vacant land. I think there were like 3 vacant land up in Pennsylvania. Um, and then like the 16 other investment properties, you know, and wife literally was a property manager for all these properties. That was her job. So, but they had different LLCs for every single one, except for the vacant land. The vacant land was all in one LLC, but it's 3 separate properties.
So I think no
So,
matter
but
what, you definitely have to, this, looking at the trust when it's with you or not trust, title, if it's you and somebody else, like what is the best option for this?
right, ask the questions, talk
Yeah.
to the title company, help
Yep.
them help you
Yeah.
determine what is the best for you because everybody's different. Everybody's got different goals in the end. Um, so that's it.
Especially,
You
yeah,
got anything else?
I think that is it. This is probably our most boring topic.
Title. How do you hold title? It's not that exciting. I tried to
It
pump
isn't.
it up a little bit, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's super important, just boring.
Yeah. It's very
It's kind of
important
like
how you
Steven.
hold it. Ah,
Steven is super important to me, but boring.
I am
Just kidding.
the fourth most exciting person in your life. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'll give you that.
Yeah. No, I definitely put
I
your
had to
family
count my
above
wife
me.
and kids.
I put them above me. I was like, I'm not stepping over them. So it sounds bad. Oh, only number 4. But I'm like, yeah, but the other 3 are definitely, they have an advantage.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
that about wraps it up. Thank you for listening and tuning in to the Brutally Honest Loan Officer podcast. I'm Derick Brown, and this is
Brock?
our podcast. We thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.
It won't be so boring.
Try not to be.
See you guys.